Hello everyone and welcome to this video. This is the second video in my beginner tutorial series for Sonic Pi. If you missed the first video, make sure you check out the link in the description. You can find it there, and there'll probably be at least 4 or maybe 5 videos in this series going forward. Again, this is just meant to give you a basic introduction to coding music with Sonic Pi, doing some live coding, and yeah, let's get back into it. So if you like this content, if you want to see more of it, don't forget to like and subscribe on this video. And do leave me a comment if you have anything that you'd like me to cover in future videos. Or indeed, if you made some nice code that you want to share, you can even post that in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys are making. Okay, let's get back into this. This is video number 2. So we're just going to pick up where we left off last time. We looked briefly as an introduction at what you could do with live loops. Again, we just created that simple kick drum beat, which sounded like that. And that's just a loop that goes round and round, giving us this nice kick drum sample. We also learned a couple of commands that are quite useful in Sonic Pi to create different sounds and also to create melodies, bass lines, chord accompaniments, all sorts of things. And we'll get a little more in depth with that today. So just to recap, we had a simple melody here. It was Merrily We Roll Along, which sounded like this. And we just created that using these 2 commands that we learned in the last video, play and sleep. So again, play command followed by a number provides a pitch number to Sonic Pi. In the 60s here, those are pitches right in the center of the piano keyboard. And then sleep values here are always denoted in seconds or whatever your beat length is. And we'll get a little bit more into that today so we can change the tempo of our music. So by alternating plays and sleeps, we can create melodies, we can create rhythms, and all the other sorts of things that we need to have interesting music. So let's just continue directly on from that. This is actually something that some students of mine coded in an after-school club, I believe last October, November time. I think probably they had seen Stranger Things, and so they were year 5 students at a school in Gateshead, and they'd heard of this never-ending story melody. So they actually coded this out while we were doing the tutorial sessions in that school. So if you're not familiar with the melody, it sounds like this. Okay, so it's just that. Now, if you do know that song, you know that actually this goes quite a bit faster on the actual original recording. So we're going to learn a new command. If we want to change the speed of our music, if we want to change the tempo, we can just add a handy command right up at the top of our code. So this needs to go right at the top so that the computer knows everything that comes after in the code will be played at that tempo. So this command we call use BPM. That stands for beats per minute. So that's how we talk about tempo usually in computer music. So use BPM normally in Sonic Pi is 60. So if you think about beats per minute, 60 beats per minute is 1 beat per second, of course. And if I don't type this at all, if I just leave this out, that's the default tempo that Sonic Pi uses. So 1 beat is 1 second. But I can change that, obviously, because for some pieces of music, that's a bit slow or fast or whatever. So we can change that. I'm just going to try BPM 108. So now we're getting 108 beats per minute. So it's going to be quite a bit faster than 60. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so that's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more pleasing. It doesn't take quite so long to play. So there we've got our never-ending story melody at a little bit better tempo that makes it sound more like the original song. And again, I just put this right at the top of my code here, this use BPM, and I can make that number anything I want. I can make it really fast if I want to. Let's see what happens if we use 200. Okay, so obviously that's probably a little bit too fast, but we'll just go back to 108. One other command I'm going to show you here now, before I turn you loose for a little bit of your own work, is a way that we can tell Sonic Pi how to change the sound that we want it to use for a section of code. In this case, the code I've highlighted here, which is our never-ending story melody. If I don't type anything at the top, then Sonic Pi uses what we call the default synth, and that is just this kind of beep sound that you hear. Which is fine, but there are loads of other sounds that Sonic Pi has available. So if I type use synth at the top here, and I hit the space bar, I get a drop-down menu. Now you'll remember the last video, you don't see the drop-down menu on your screen that I can see here because my software is not capturing it, but it is there. So if you type use synth space bar, you do get a drop-down menu. You'll see it on your screen when you do this. And I think there must be several dozen different synths that you can use. So I'm just going to choose one at random here. Let's see what pluck sounds like. I'm guessing it's a string sound. Okay, so that's pretty nice, but I think we can do better. So I'm going to just erase that pluck sample, back my cursor up to the H, the last letter of use synth, and then when I hit the spacebar again, I'm going to get that drop-down menu. Again, you can't see it on this video, but it will be there when you're on your machine. So I'm just going to choose a different sound. I didn't really care for that pluck so much. What happens if we try mod try? Okay, so it's a different kind of sound. That one's a little bit funky. I'm just going to choose one more and see how we go here. Let's try, not one of the mod ones. I think there's a piano sound. Yes, there is. So again, if I just choose this piano sound, it's probably going to sound like a piano. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, these commands that we just learned here, let me make a space there. Use BPM, and then a number, and then use synth, and then the name of the synth that we want to use. Those always need to come right at the top of your code so that everything that comes after that, the computer knows to play either at that tempo that you set at the top or to use that synth at the top. One other thing I want to show you before I turn you loose for a little of your own coding is a really handy way that we can repeat things in Sonic Pi. Now, if you know the never-ending story melody, you know that actually this comes twice. So it plays the bit that we just heard, and then it plays again before we get to the next section of the song. So there's a couple of ways I could do that in Sonic Pi. I could, of course, just copy all of this code and then paste it in so that the actual code is duplicated. But if I do that all the time, I'm going to get a really long file of code, which is okay, but I think we can find a better way. So if I just want to play this section of code 2 times or more, the handy way to do that is to just type 2.times space do, and then I'm going to go down to the very end of the section that I want to play 2 times, and I'm going to just type an end. So we've got a do, you can see it's that color, and then the end at the bottom. So it should play our melody twice this time. And notice that we've left these guys, these commands here, out of that loop because we don't need to repeat that code. We can say that one time. So it did it. It played it 2 times. And of course, I could make this anything I want. I could put in 300, and sure enough, Sonic Pi would play it 300 times, which we're not going to do right now for obvious reasons. Okay, so that's going to do it for this short section here. So what I'd like you to do now, again, is pause the video. And if you want to try making your own melody, you might have started something in the last session that you want to continue working on. That's fine. Maybe you want to start something from scratch. But see if you can make your own melody using different play pitch values and different sleep times to get different rhythms. And you can also play around with this number dot times do syntax, which lets you repeat something more than once. And you can play around with different tempos and different sounds using those 2 commands. So go ahead and pause the video, take about 10 minutes to have a play, and I'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had a chance to play around a little bit with some different tempo markings, so use BPM values here, and yeah, hopefully you had a chance to experiment with some of the different synths that you can use in Sonic Pi. You'll notice I changed this one here during that break because I like this one a little bit better. This sub-pulse sounds like this. So just a little bit more synthy, a little bit more computer music-y sound. I wanted to finish off this video by just talking about another way that we can get sound out of Sonic Pi. There are 2 basic ways that we can do that. One is by using different synths, like we've been doing here, and then playing different pitches using the play command. The other way is to use samples. So samples are like synths in that they're built into Sonic Pi, and there are dozens and dozens of different samples that you can use. So I'm just going to show you how that works by going into a fresh buffer. So you remember last video we talked about these numbers at the bottom of your screen of the big window here. You see 0, 1, 2, and so on. So right now I'm in buffer 2, and you'll notice the code that I wrote from the previous video is still in these first couple of buffers. And there's what we've been working on here with Never Ending Story. I'm just going to go into buffer 3 and play around with some samples and see if I can find something that I like. So I've got a fresh buffer here in buffer 3, and all I'm going to do is type sample, and then when I hit the space bar, again, I'll get a drop-down menu. You don't see it on the video here, but you'll see it again when you do it on your machine. So I'm just going to choose one at random here. So I have this ambient drone, and we'll just see what this sounds like. So I'll run my code. That's kind of nice. I actually quite like that one. I'm going to just check another sample here and see if I can find something else that might work. Maybe another one of these ambient. What if I try this lunar lander? So again, here I've got 2 different samples on lines 1 and 2 of my code. If I hit run, Sonic Pi will play them in succession very, very quickly, so it sounds like they're playing at the same time. So that's quite a nice atmosphere, actually. I'm going to try and use these 2 samples in my Never Ending Story melody. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this ambient drone, and I'm going to go back to buffer 2. So we've got our Never Ending Story melody here. And I think I'm going to put that ambient drone at the beginning of my 2 times loop. So I'm just going to go to the end, put my cursor at the end of that do there, and hit the return button. And I get a fresh line. So I'm just going to paste that in. So now, every time that this loop comes around, it's going to play this sample first, and then it's going to go on with the Never Ending Story melody. So let's check that that works. So when the loop comes to the top again, it plays this sample again. Okay, I like that. I actually want the sample though to continue a bit longer. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in another one here at the halfway point of the melody. So this is that highest note in the melody that we get to about halfway through. So I'm just going to paste in another ambient drone so that it comes twice in that melody. Let's just check how it sounds. There we go. So now I've got that nice ambient drone just droning in the background all through my melody. Now, another thing I can do is I can take this other sound, this ambient lunar lander that I also liked. I'm just going to copy that this time and then go back to my never-ending story buffer. Now, this one, it might be fun to have this start as a sort of like a first sound that we hear, maybe like an introduction to the piece. So I'm going to paste that lunar lander sample in there. And then maybe it would be cool if I just waited, let's say, 2 beats before we start with the melody. So we'll have this sound happening for 2 beats, and then we'll enter our 2 times loop. So what we should hear is this sound come once, a pause of 2 seconds, and then the loop starting here. Now, do you think that we're going to hear that sample twice? Just think about what our loop is doing down here. We shouldn't. We should only hear it once because this bit of code here is not inside our 2 times do loop. So this should only happen the very first time that we run our code. So let's check that. So that worked. So the melody repeats, but we only hear that lunar lander one time. I think it was a bit too quick though. I think the melody starts too quickly after I play this lunar lander sample. So I'm going to double that sleep time. So now we're waiting 4 beats before we start the melody. Let's just see if I like that. I like that better. It's a little bit more like an introduction. And I might even try 5, so it's a little bit more space between that sound and when the melody starts. That's quite nice. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. Let's just recap what we learned. So we have a couple of new commands here. We've got use BPM, which again tells the computer to play code at a certain speed or at a certain tempo, beats per minute. If we don't type this, if we don't have this up here at all, let me just get rid of it. Sonic Pi will play at the default BPM, which is 60 or 1 beat per second, which is quite slow for lots of music, but for some music it's perfect. So let's again hear what that sounds like. So it's a lot slower. And it's not really appropriate for this tune, I think. This one should be a little bit faster. So I'll paste that back in. We also learned the use synth command. So we can type that, hit the space, and then we get that drop-down menu with all the different synths that you can choose from. This is one that I've chosen. You can play around and find some other ones that you like. We also today learned the sample command. So typing sample again and then hitting the space bar gives you a drop-down menu of all the different samples you can choose from. And you can stick these in along with your plays and sleeps to trigger those samples wherever you want. And again, finally, we learned about this 2 times do loop, which just repeats a section of code a certain number of times. So this could be anything I want. It could be 5, it could be 1,000, it can be whatever I want. For this tune, it actually is 2 because this melody repeats twice. So that's going to do it for this video. Again, if you like this content, you want to be updated when I upload new videos, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave me comments if there's something you want me to cover in the coming videos. There'll be about 2 or 3 more in this series. Okay, so that does it for today, and we'll see you in the next video.